This is the Winning Plays Podcast on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider for the NBA's winningest franchise.
All right, Winning Plays Podcast is back, and the Celtics have charged through the midway point of the season as the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And it's time to take a look back and reflect. How are things going? What comes next? Tom Westerholm of Boston.com is here, good friend of the show. Tom, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Just dandy. It's been it's nuts to kind of see the way this season started to the point of like where this team is at now. So I'm going to kind of go broaden us here with where they're at in the Eastern Conference through 40 plus games here, and I want to go with like 3 successes or surprises and like 3 biggest like disappointments or just like areas to improve potentially go in the second half. I mean, I don't even know if we can get to 3 disappointments there, but I figure that's I guess a good broad way of looking at it here. So I mean, from your standpoint, if you're looking at like the good here in the first half, like what is there something that sticks out more? I mean, the list is obviously long here, but what's like number one on your list on that front?
Well, I think to me, because this team's overall overarching, they only talk about this goal is the championship, right? I think if you work backward from that, to win a championship, what's the biggest thing you need? Well, you need a star, 2 stars, really. And that, I think, is the number one thing to me that's been great for the Celtics this season. They have 2 stars. Like, it's not like one MVP candidate and another guy who's, like, pretty good. It's like, no, they've got, like, they do have an MVP candidate, but they've also got a guy who, could start in the All-Star game, who's, probably at this stage in the season got something like an inside track on, like, All-NBA third team. Like, they've got 2 legitimate, no questions asked stars. And, if you're trying to build a championship team, that's where you start, right? You have to have those 2 guys. One of those guys is like a top 5 guy in the NBA. I mean, what a luxury for this team. Joe Mazzulla comes in and nobody's sure like how things are going to go. It's like, oh, well, you know what? They'll probably go okay because they have 2 no questions asked stars. And like, that doesn't always mean chemistry is going to happen, but these 2 have been together for so long that like, it's just, it's been really impressive to me to watch those 2 work together and improve and just kind of get to the level they're at now.
Yeah, it's funny you start with there. Just I think now after Wednesday night's win, there's 7 games this year where they've both scored 30 plus points in the same game with Tatum and Brown, and that just used to be like a big deal when that happened, and now it's just like, oh yeah, like they did that again. And I'm sure there's been a bunch of games too. They both had like 28 or 29, like 30 is an arbitrary number on that front. But your point is like this is just like the proof is in the pudding here for both those guys now, and I feel like Jaylen's consistency is just ramping that up even further.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I feel like we always talk about how all the best duos in the NBA, these guys are the best duo in the NBA, and I almost feel like that takes away from what they each do individually, right? Like because when you say like best duo in the NBA, it's like okay, but best duo in the NBA, but they're not. No, like these guys are both that level of star to where like Tatum, like on a. I think Tatum would be winning even with a lesser player than Jaylen, but Jaylen is not a lesser player. Like Jaylen's a star too. So I think I can always understand kind of the questions that people would have, like, are these guys working together? Because I think they're both just at that level where you could imagine them being good on their own too. Especially Tatum, obviously, but I just think that's the. That's the engine driving this car that that's been picking up speed over the course of the season. It's just how great those 2 are, and the fact that they've been able to put it together over the last 2 seasons and kind of build this contender.
They just they had that talk in New York last season after that tough loss. Like, hey, do you guys want to play together? Like, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, good. And now we're gonna right. It's as simple as that. No.
Marcus Smart screamed at them to pass more to each other. And ever since then, it's just been.
Problem solved.
It's been perfect. Yeah, it's done.
All right. So now I'm going to go with number 2 here for me on that front. You brought him up briefly there. I think Joe Mazzulla has to be, as far as like the uncertainty going into the year, that situation clearly could have gone either way. And for him to come in, to hit the ground running the way this team did in the first month of the year. And now I think to honestly, the ship didn't take on water for a few weeks, but there were some, there were some stormy waters there for a little bit. And now he's pretty much kind of, not that all their problems are solved right now, but at least been able to respond to that, get things back on track, start to reintegrate Rob Williams into the starting five at a, probably the pace he wanted to do and begin with. So I think you look at just how he
not the pace Tatum wanted.
No, exactly. And that pace, but even then it's like, wow, like, do you think they would get away with like not starting Rob for like 8 or 9 games? You're like, no chance.
Yeah,
but he somehow did until the buck ended with Tatum there. But yeah, like Mizzou, like your impressions just on his first half and how this has kind of gone for him.
Well, I think to me, one of the most impressive things is like, you start off the season so hot and obviously there's like a lot of unsustainable shooting going on during that stretch, right? Where it's like, okay, I mean, like credit to Missoula, but also this, like, it feels like just about anybody could be winning when all your players are shooting this well. And again, credit to him, like, the ball's zipping around, like everything's working. Like part of the reason everybody's shooting well is because they've got all these open shots, but there was a certain level of unsustainable shooting. There was kind of like, I feel like people kind of got a little bit of the hang of what the Celtics were doing and then started to adjust to that. But I mean, one of the things that you have to do as a coach in the NBA is continue to adjust, continue to improve, continue to come up with new things. And, just that evolution. And I think, we're seeing kind of that evolution and some of that is getting Rob back and some of that is just kind of having a more complete team. But, I do feel like we're seeing with him, the Celtics can bounce back from things. Like they're not just they're not always just like a make or miss team. We're seeing them win games when they shoot, 32% from three, or when they, when Jaylen goes 0 for 8 from 3-point range, Celtics still pull out a win. Like that, those things are, can still happen. I think a lot of that Missoula deserves, as much credit as any coach, really. Like he's been really good. He's kind of kept everybody together. And I think the other thing that I've seen him really do is he seems to be instilling this this kind of culture of sort of like positivity, like almost this like everybody they're being very kind to themselves. I can't remember who said it earlier this season, but somebody said like we have to be kind to ourselves and to each other because nobody on the outside is going to be nice to us. This was like during one of the losing streaks, and I was like, that's very interesting, and it feels like a shift from last year where the whole thing with Ime was like, okay, you get into the huddle, Ime yells at you for playing like crap, and then you go out there and you stop playing like crap. Like it feels different this year, where they're all sort of like, it feels a little bit more like inwardly supportive in a way that I think probably has a lot of positives for a team that does take on criticism when they lose.
I mean, he's not even yelling him in the huddle. He's not even going back to the huddle. It's like, hey guys,
right? Yeah. You guys work it out. He's not even bringing him into the huddle.
Exactly. We'll talk to you at halftime about this. But for now,
we'll catch you later.
But it is like we joke about that, but I think it is a part of being like, okay, what is the timeout's purpose? Like so I can rip into you. Like that's not my style. If you're Joe Mazzulla, so it's like, okay, let's try to maybe build some mental additional like fortitude, however you want to phrase it, to because these adverse situations have popped up for years with this group. The response has not been great on the whole, like in big spots up until most of last season. But they obviously built through it amid some close calls during that, run to the NBA finals. But there's obviously room for improvement there. And so this from Joe's, from seeing that from, the bench for the last couple of years, you wonder how that's part of like the big picture for him.
Well, and it's so interesting. It's almost like a parenting technique, but like you talk about building the mental fortitude and just kind of letting them work it out themselves. And I mean, that's what Ime was doing in a different way, right? Like he was building the mental fortitude by just calling them out, saying like, here are the things you are doing wrong. Stop doing those things. And it's like, that's one way to do it. But Missoula's way of doing it also builds mental fortitude, even though it is more like, kind of, it feels like it's, I mean, we can't know for sure, but it feels like it's more like positivity focused. It feels like it's more like, kind of like, lifting each other up a little bit, but at the same time, yeah, like it figure it out, guys. Like you guys figure it out. You guys sort it out. I think that's that's pretty interesting. So, I think Missoula deserves a lot of credit for that too.
All right, so we got the Jays, we got Joe. I'll narrow down here. Like, out of the supporting cast, who are you most like pleasantly surprised with, or who's had the most, the biggest leap, however you want to phrase it, during this first half of the season?
Well, I'll cheat and I'll do two. I think the two biggest I think are Horford, right? I think when you watch the impact that he has on this team and just the way that he has evolved his game, it's almost mind blowing, right? Like he's like the fact that he barely takes twos anymore. From a guy who, for the first, what was it, like 7 or 8 years of his career, he had it took like 15 threes total. Like, this dude never took threes. As he's evolved throughout his career, he's become this knockdown 3-point shooter. And, that offers so much value for this team to just be able to do that 5 out, at times to be able to run these pick and pops with him. And, and that, especially as Robb starts to come back, I just think that having that, being able to play that double big lineup and still have just, endless floor spacing with vertical spacing with Robb, so valuable. And I think the other one is Grant, just this guy. Well, I mean, when he came into the league, he wasn't really anything yet. He was just this this big ball of Play-Doh, and he and the Celtics have just worked together to mold him into this bizarre post up, but also drive off kickouts, but also hits threes and can switch on to anything. But also, oh, by the way, he's passing out of the short roll, and he'll move the ball around the perimeter. He's such a perfect role player, man. And I think, going forward, I think for one thing, I think the Celtics are going to have to pay him this summer. I don't think you can let a player like that go. No. I think he's a future starter on this team. And, it's really cool to watch. I just think he's going to be the type of player that every team is just I honestly think he's going to be the type of player that gets players who look like him drafted, even though they're not him. I feel like we're going to see some stocky 6'5" guys who are actually 6'4" getting drafted because of Grant Williams down the line.
Yeah, there's no more arguments about the Matisse Thybulle pick.
No, not at all.
For those have faded. But yeah, you always know, I think honestly for the his dribble drive game that he's kind of showed off in the first half of this year, that's just such a huge game changer for and it's I think a big part of the equation of why this offense is, close to historic pace now, because it's one thing when he can hit the wide open threes because no one's around him and teams are daring him to do it. But now it's okay, you're just going to have to close out on him, but he will make you pay if you close out too hard now. So there's, pick your poison on this offense right now. And he's one guy that's, really just not even a weak spot anymore.
Well, and oh, by the way, if you do close out perfectly, if you're at all weaker than him and he can bench press like a fire truck, he'll just turn around. He can just turn around and post you up, because that's what he did in college. That was like a big part of his game was just post ups. So yeah, I mean, just a really good player, man. It's been fascinating to watch his evolution over the last few years. He's turned himself into just a really stellar NBA role player.
All right, let's take a break here to hear from our sponsor, HelloFresh. Looking for an easy way to eat well and save money this year? You can cut back on expensive takeout and delivery and get started with HelloFresh. You'll learn how fast, easy, and affordable it is to whip up a restaurant-quality meal right in your own kitchen. And eating well is also on the top of mind this month as we start 2023, and it's comforting to know that you'll always get top quality with HelloFresh. Ingredients travel from the farm to you in less than 7 days, so they're fresh. And personally, I love HelloFresh as a product because preparing food in a working household here with kids, it's a lot of work. Getting it delivered to your doorstep saves a lot of time for us than having to go to the grocery store. You have the fresh ingredients there with the instructions, so you can cook fast and easy with HelloFresh, which we do all the time here. So make sure you can go to HelloFresh.com/winning21 and use the code winning21 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. Let me tell you that again. You can go to HelloFresh.com/winning21 and use the code winning21, all one word on there, for 21 free meals plus free shipping. Make sure you check them out at HelloFresh.com/winning21. All right, let's flip the coin here. There's not a lot to nitpick with this group, so we can even honestly just look at it from a gauge of whether it's adding to the team on the trade or the buyout market, or just, internal routes of improvement in the second half of the season. But whether it's a player or whether it's how the team's performing in certain spots, like where do you start in that front? Do you have any real area of concern right now with this team that's got off to this kind of start?
Well, as people like to remind me on Twitter, on Corrales' pod, I mentioned that I think Sam Hauser. I was at the start of the season, I was saying like Sam Hauser should have been like a late lottery pick. Like I got
playing him in the finals last year.
Yeah, well, like that's why they lost. Not like I was getting real high off my own tall shooting white boy supply with Sam Hauser, and man, I need that guy to start making some threes so I don't look so dumb. Like what is going on here? I think getting him back on track. I mean that Hauser. He is what he is, right? He's a spot up shooter, and I mean, but to get him, if the Celtics can kind of get him back into a rhythm, get him back to shooting, like he added such a dangerous element to that offense. When you bring Hauser in, 12 minutes off the bench, he takes takes 4 threes and he makes 3 of them. All of a sudden, like over that 12 minutes, you just have like 9 points, in like 6 possessions. That's, that was so valuable. So, I think for me, one of the big ones is just like this team is very complete as it is. Like you said, it does feel like nitpicking because, I don't think most people kind of like looked at Sam Hauser and thought, oh, there's a huge offseason addition. But I do think that getting him back on track and getting him back to, obviously not back to where he's shooting like 55% from 3, but just, can we get this guy back up to 40% consistently? Because if so, I think that really makes a big difference in the Celtics bench. Yeah,
and that's clearly where when this team kind of went off the rails for a few weeks there, like that was a big part of the equation where it wasn't just him, but like how he was probably like your second option off that bench next to Brockton for stretches. And when he was due to fall back to earth. He's still incredibly at 40% for the season right now, despite probably shooting under 30% the last 2 months here. Yeah. But if he can just get back, you don't need to even get to 40%. If you get above 35, just get it to something where you're 2 out of 5 on those nights, or 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 for the week. Just something where you have to make these teams continue to respect you. I agree 100%. I think that's like, if anything, if they can get back to that, then decisions around the trade deadline just become a lot easier.
Yeah. I do think he's got to. I do think he's got to come. Personally, I think he's got to come a little closer to 40%, just because I think we're starting to see. There was a stretch where I think teams were a little too excited to attack him, and so they tried too hard. But now I think we're starting to see teams like get more of like okay, let's calm down, let's attack him the way we want to attack him, and that is working. So I do think for him to have value, like he needs to be pretty efficient from 3. Like he's not holding up the way he was before as guys get used. CJ McCollum is not having any problems with Sam Hauser. So I think for him, it is pretty important for him to boost that number up. But once he does, I do think that the value remains, right? Like he makes that offense so much better. So
yeah, he's been a first half player of late, and that I think speaks to your point of being like, this is, and when you roll that over to the playoffs, that means you're probably going to be like a out of the rotation player. So that needs to be
for sure
buttoned up there. I think my main, I think there's a gripe. You look at the minutes right now for some of these guys, and that's something now that you have, Robb back, and it looks like you're going to be pushing back towards the starting 5, like the old school starting 5 with Robb and Al together based on what they did this week. Like Al Horford can't be playing over 30 minutes a game anymore. Like that just needs to, and I honestly don't even think, Tom, like, I don't even think it helps you as a team for him to be playing that much, because I think we've seen, a stretches from him here where he's just, he's starting to fall back to earth, and that's like, makes sense because, he's playing more than he has pretty much in any season going back to 2017 right now. And that's just not great for guys at 36. So I think across the board, you want to bring the starters down a little bit, but I think, him has to be priority number 1 to just like, get him more than back-to-backs, like get him down to like the mid to 27, 28 a game.
Yeah, because I mean the other thing that we see is when he does take a night off, or when he takes like a couple nights off and he comes back, like he's a world beater, right? Like all of a sudden he's just like like he's awesome when he takes a couple nights off. So no, I agree with that completely. And look, I mean with the minutes, like that was a major problem throughout the playoffs. Like as the playoffs went on last year, the guys got tired. Like and some of that was just these brutal playoff series. But like honestly, you look around the Eastern Conference, there's some tough teams. If the Celtics are going to get back to the finals, they're going to have some like 6-game, 7-game series. Like this is not going to be some kind of romp through the Eastern Conference. Like if they make it back there. So you are, I think thinking now, I mean, we're almost, we're midway through January. It's time to start looking ahead a little bit and start thinking like, okay, like how do we trim down these minutes? How do we get guys more time off? Jason Tatum has been like a robot who just like, and I'm knocking on, like, my desk is made of wood. I'm knocking on wood here, but like, he's been this robot who never misses games. You got to make him do it sometimes. You don't wear this guy down. Like, he's too good. Like, for his own good, get him some days off here. Because like, if you leave him up to his own devices, he's going to play, 83 out of 82 games. So, I think,
unless there's a birthday party for his kid. Which is
let's
good.
Get him some more.
Right, do a party a month for dudes, whatever you want to do.
Right, have more kids so that you have more birthday parties, so that you sit out more games. 100%.
I'll have to get tricky because he doesn't. Sounds like he's not going to want to sit on his own. So you're going to have to diversions, whatever you can come up with, both for him, Jaylen Brown as well. Like, those guys as of us recording on today, have both played 40 games this year, which is tops on the team. I mean, it's been a pretty, outside of Rob Williams and Gowan, like, they had all their bad health luck early, and they've had a pretty nice health like streak right now. And so I don't know if that's a concern going into the second half here, but I think that's something you just have to be proactive about. And, dust off Luke Cornett more, dust off Blake Griffin more, give Peyton Pritchard 15 minutes, like, not every night, but like at least once a week, even if everyone's healthy, because like, why not?
Well, do it every night until the trade deadline. Like,
oh, right.
Showcase it a little bit. Sure. It's not going to hurt anything. So yeah, like, no, I mean, I'm on board with all of that. I think, I think limited minutes is very important. It's funny you mentioned, like, how all the injury stuff, kind of happened at the beginning of the season. Like, during the summer, everybody was kind of talking about how like the Celtics had this perfect summer, and then everything fell apart in training camp. But then it all kind of just like stitched itself back together and was fine again. So real roller coaster season, it feels like.
I still can't believe we're already halfway in. It feels like all this it all just piled up, and then it's like, oh wow, yep, they're right there. Trade deadlines like less than a month away, and nothing's been happening around the NBA. I feel like, I don't know whether that's a byproduct of just like all these teams kind of being in it this year, more so than usual, or just the fact that there's, a few shoes to drop around the league, and the Celtics certainly are not like high on that list. You don't expect them to do much coming up here, but like they have some options here.
Well, I think too, the other thing that happened was like there was a real dichotomy between the haves and the want Victor Wembanyama's. Like there was a very easy split this season. You knew like at the start of the year what everybody wanted. But yeah, man, I mean, like when I think it was Abby asked Joe Mazzulla the other day, like she was like, "Oh, we're 41 games in." I was like, "We're what? Are you serious?" Like, but yeah, here we are. So yeah.
And some of those tanking teams have not even followed the plan yet. You have like
right.
Which there's still time to do at this point, but
Utah's just good for some reason.
Utah, right? The Lakers are closer to lottery than the Jazz at this point, so it's a crazy road out there. But all right, well, that'll do it for our check-in here. Make sure you're following the great Tom Westerholm on Twitter at Tom_NBA. Check out all his great stuff on Boston.com too, and you can check him out on the Locked On Celtics pod with good old Corrales at least once a week. He's hitting that up there, so make sure you check him out there too. And Tom, a pleasure as always.
Appreciate you, man. Catch you soon.
Let's take a break here to hear from our sponsor, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. I know personally, I've been on LinkedIn for years. It's helped me network throughout my career as a journalist, open up possibilities to jobs being open, interviews, get recommendations. So it's been a great place for me to expand my job performance, and it can help you out there if you join in LinkedIn Jobs as well by helping you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post company and use their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job applicants all on one platform. And as you're looking to achieve goals in 2023, finding the right member will probably help you do just that if you find them on LinkedIn Jobs. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So here's what you can do. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/winning. That's linkedin.com/winning to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And now back to the show.
All right, we're joined now by a very special guest on the podcast making his return, but for the first time when he's with Yahoo Sports. Jake Fischer joins the show. Great to have you back, Jake. How are you doing, man?
Thank you, B-Rob. Always good talking to you. How are you doing? How's everything back up in the old Beantown?
It's good, man. It's been a roller coaster ride, at least on the ground here over the first half of the season. But I wanted to bring you in to this show for I thought you had a really interesting piece today too on the Pacers, and there's a lot of former Celtics kind of involved there and how kind of ties into the trade deadline here. But I also wanted to get your perspective, since you're taking the pulse nationally a lot of teams around the league, in terms of where you kind of see the Celtics right now in the landscape of the East, the fallout of of Joe Mazzulla taking over here and how he's kind of been viewed around the league. So what have you seen yourself, and what have you kind of heard around the league in terms of what people see out of this team so far?
Yeah, I think generally it's been an impressive showing that the Celtics have, aside from a couple little dips in the standings, they've pretty much led the Eastern Conference wire to wire so far after, all the quote unquote controversy and what have you in the coaching ranks prior to the season. And then obviously the Nets' approach of Ime Udoka doesn't, happen without impacting Celtics people's psyche as well, right? So to overcome that and to have pretty much, this wire-to-wire start like we talked about with Robert Williams missing a lot of time has been impressive. And I think Jason Tatum's continued emergence. Jaylen Brown seems to have really improved as a ball handler and his ability to create on his own. They're as good of a bet as any to win the title, right? That's just kind of, I think, where things stand. And is that a good summation to your question?
Yeah, I mean, you point out, I think the Jaylen part of it's a really good point from the standpoint with his ball handling, because I feel like that was front and center during last year's postseason run of just the pressure the Warriors and other teams are putting on him, and just kind of exposing what he was limited there. But you see just the type of efficiency he's putting up this year, and maybe kind of knowing when to attack more and when to kind of lay back. But it is a situation now with him. It's funny because I think he's clearly going to be an all-star, looks like, but I don't know if he's close to getting into the All-NBA equation yet, but that's a very interesting subplot for this offseason if he is, because if he does get there, he could be eligible for that Supermax. And that's really the only way that you could envision him signing an extension this summer, because otherwise the Celtics really can't offer enough to make it worth his while, it seems like.
Yeah, which I will call it right now. I'm not saying that they will be legitimate, but if he's not Supermax eligible and he's not going to sign an extension, that's just going to open the door for chatter about ever going to want to sign one. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not trying to say that will happen. This is just how this narrative machine beats these days.
It is. And I feel like the Celtics more than any team has been, how many times in the last 5 years have they been, they couldn't sign Kyrie to the extension initially because they couldn't offer all these NBA rules that kind of limit in terms of what you can offer these guys. Not that Kyrie would have stayed in the first place back then, but that could have been, when things were going well back before the 2018-19 season. You wonder back then if he, could have signed then, and similar situations with a lot of these guys coming up, not just in Boston but across the league. But you wonder with the new CBA and stuff coming up too, you wonder if stuff like that will be addressed, where to eliminate the drama that surrounds these guys when they're understandably just not going to sign an extension going into a contract here.
Yeah, there's been a lot of complaints I've heard from people about restricted free agency too. And that's something I'm going to definitely look to write about after we get past the trade deadline. It just, there are far too many there are a lot of rules in place that seem to hurt teams trying to retain their guys, which just doesn't make any sense. Like, sure, you want to make it challenging. Like, I think that's the difference in like playing Settlers of Catan versus like Monopoly, right? Like, there's a little bit more of a stratagem in place, but like and rules bring out creativity and competition, all that type of stuff. But like, if the goal is to help teams be able to keep guys that they drafted and reward them for the hard work and the development that they've done with their own coaches, like, you got to try to figure out more mechanisms to get teams to be able to retain their homegrown talent.
It is. I feel like that is a front and center issue that will be coming up here. I mean, from what are you expecting these to be smooth negotiations when they, inevitably come up here in the next year? And I know there's ongoing talks right now, but do you think that this will, won't lead to any kind of, uncertainty when things get maybe closer down the wire?
Between Jaylen and Boston?
Yeah, even Jaylen Boston, and then also just a big picture, like with the NBA, like the CBA, like in terms of these, like what you talked about, like issues like restricted free agency, things like that coming up where they could have, whether it's the ownership side or the player side, just wanting, necessary changes there to make life easier for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the CBA stuff, like, I don't know what to. I mean, I've heard a ton of ideas about what's been thrown around, right? But like the hard cap, for example, that the league and the owners are pushing, like that's not getting any acceptance, if you will, from the player side and the union. Like, that's just kind of a non-starter. Every team person I talk to just immediately pushes that aside, like, haha, no, the hard cap is not a thing. So other ideas that get thrown out, like, to be honest, I don't know what is really like going to be the I's that get dotted and the T's that get crossed right now. There's too much that's been, I mean, the league and the union definitely want to get this thing done before All-Star. The league particularly wants to get it done before All-Star ahead of television media rights contract conversations that they have to have in their own right. To like bring you nitty gritty things that are being negotiated and discussed, I can't really do that with like full confidence because there's just so many ideas that get thrown at the wall. Like, I mean, there's one GM I talked to who was saying, oh, like they're definitely discussing the idea of having a percentage of tax, decline or not count anymore if there are guys you drafted. And like, a lot of times one team will just throw out an idea and they'll make it seem like it's really happening, but it's not, you know what I mean? So there's tons of ideas like that get thrown on the board that are all, it's also a negotiation, right? Everything that one side gets, the other side has to give. So like, there's always little points of contention. The draft age limit is a thing that gets talked about a lot, especially with NIL kind of throwing a whole monkey wrench in things. But I can't really like pin down specific little tiny minutia at the end. But with Jaylen and Boston, I mean, I haven't heard anything about those talks aside from like anytime I've ever asked people about Jaylen and Boston, it's that Jaylen loves to Boston. He loves being a Celtic. He wants to be a Celtic. So I'll say that.
Yeah, and when you couldn't ask for a better start, like I feel like if the winning continues, that's going to be probably an easy story for both sides. So the only way that probably gets interesting if things have a rocky finish in the postseason this year. But let's zoom out a little bit to like the league now. We're within a month to the trade deadline here. You had a really interesting piece today on Yahoo, not just about the Pacers and their interesting options on hand, but also the Utah Jazz with Danny Ainge being out there now. Another really interesting team. Two teams that have clearly overachieved based on expectations this year and have really kind of created a somewhat quiet trade market to this point where we've had a lot of shoes to potentially drop, whether it's Jay Crowder or a bunch of teams that you thought would maybe start selling by now, but there seems to be a bunch of situations in limbo. So what's your read? Do you think this is going to kind of continue? A lot of teams just waiting and seeing right now to see like, all right, let's see what the next month looks like and see if we can get back into it or see if we fall out of it and then start making decisions. Or you think things will start picking up sooner rather than later.
Everyone keeps telling me that nothing's happening until February, so I'm taking them at their word for it. And on Tuesday, I'm going on vacation actually for a week. I'm like making all these calls this week, like trying to get ahead of the ball. And Monday, Tuesday, I heard a bunch of stuff. Like the Patriots were my North Star to try to write that story. I was looking at everything through the Indiana lens, and then I've got some D'Angelo Russell stuff left over from when I was with the Wolves down in OKC a couple weeks back, and like there isn't much new. Like there just isn't much new out there, and I think it's clearly attributed to the fact that the play-in tournament is giving all these teams hope that they can either make it, into the play-in tournament and just get into the postseason, or, I think the Celtics, to bring this back to the subject matter at hand, like the Celtics were the 11th seed, late in January, right? And stormed their way all the way to the finals. And so many teams think they're just a 6-game win streak here, a 5-game win streak there from getting back to their preseason expectations. Like Toronto Raptors are a team I've made a lot of calls about this week. And they've got, I think John Schumann at NBA.com wrote this yesterday. They've got the easiest remaining schedule in the league. They have a homestand right now, back-to-back with Charlotte, and they have a struggling Atlanta Hawks team coming in. Like if the Raptors all of a sudden rally off 7 out of 8 and 10 out of 13, all of a sudden, do they climb their way back up to the 6th seed, and are they making a big move to be buyers, just like the Pacers are thinking about right now themselves? Like that's certainly in the cards for a lot of teams. So I think, while the trade deadline is close, there's still 10, 15 games for certain teams between now and February 9th. And that's a large sample size. As much as I think the beginning of the teams holding their cards close in December was, we're still evaluating what we are. We're still evaluating what we are. I think now everyone's still evaluating what they are in terms of like the greater context of everyone else, where they are in the standings, what's available to actually go make a move. I do think we'll see activity because I think like people are holding their pearls so, like they're clutching them so aggressively that when one shoe drops, I think there'll be some reactions, but I don't think we're going to see like massive fireworks here. I think it's going to be, I think, a situation where there's a lot of shuffling more so than like big swings, where maybe we'll see some Kristaps Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie, Davis Bertans type stuff, or just player X for player Y that makes sense, position for position type things, because there aren't a lot of teams, excuse my poor grammar, that are trying to just like bottom out, or teams that like have clear, obvious goals that they're trying to accomplish. There's very few positional openings that are pretty like direct and just clear marriages to be had. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating on that front from to your point in terms of how close teams are. I think only like 4 teams in the league total are like more than a couple games out of that play-in tournament right now. So it's like even the OKCs or like even the Orlando Magics of the world can say like, hey, we don't need to necessarily like fire sale this yet, and we want to start building some progress anyway. I'm sure as a franchise for teams like that have been kind of working to build stuff for years.
I mean, the Magic, I don't think are like deciding whether or not to go.
Yeah, right.
But like the Wizards don't have a first round pick in this upcoming draft if they don't make the playoffs. That's top 14 protected. I forget who it's owed to off the top of my head, but like they don't have their own pick if they don't make the playoffs. The Raptors like clearly want to make the playoffs. The Bulls have all this, draft capital invested in getting DeMar and Nick Vucevic and Zach LaVine. They just awarded a massive, I said maximum. I confused massive and maximum contract. He's got a massive maximum contract he just signed that, they didn't award him thinking that they'd be chasing lottery balls. And even their situation's peculiar because their pick's top 4 protected. So they would really, if they decide to blow it up and they don't make it into the lottery drawings, because now under the new rules, you draw for the first 4 positions. Like if they end up with the 5th pick, like the Bulls blew it up for nothing, right? So I mean, maybe in theory they would have gotten back a young player and replenished their cupboard of picks if they got stuff back for DeMar or whoever. Again, we're just speaking hypothetically. But I think there's only like the Charlotte Hornets, the Detroit Pistons, the Rockets, and the Spurs right now are like obvious sellers, really. And the Pistons are holding a high asking price for their guys because like the Thunder don't even have like Mike Muscala is not a player. No offense to Mike Muscala, that teams are like racing to go pry from the Thunder. You know what I'm saying? So it's just it really is a seller's market right now, and that's why you see teams like the Rockets thinking that they can ultimately get a first round pick for Eric Gordon.
So let's bring it back to the East and the Celtics a little bit now in terms of that, overview of the trade landscape here. The Celtics they have a couple of trade exceptions. They have some future picks. They have stuff to move, but given the state of their roster and their tax situation, there's not a lot of clear holes that they need to fill. So I'd say, if it's a seller's market, it'd probably almost be a little bit of a surprise for them to make, barring an injury or something that needs to, be addressed and pop up.
For sure. The only real Celtics data point that I had learned over the weeks was this Noah Vonleh trade that was apparently, coming. And I didn't realize from the person who had tipped me about it that it was in relation to his guarantee date. Like I was like, oh, I'll save that note. Like, who cares about Noah Vonleh right now? Again, no offense, Noah Vonleh. That'll be an interesting little thing to throw into some notebook here and there, and then the deal happened for Gorgie Jang. So I mean, outside of that, you're right. Like there aren't obvious places to upgrade here. I mean, people look at Peyton Pritchard and consider him someone that Boston could, in theory, look to dangle to try to make an upgrade, but he still has a lot of fans in that coaching staff and that front office. It's not like he's just someone that they have lost faith in. He's just too low in the rotation. They acquired players who Malcolm Brogdon is just more of an effective player at this stage of their NBA life cycles, and that's just what it is. But if something were to happen, injuries arise, right? Peyton Pritchard would be a piece that I'm certain Celtics people are very happy to have waiting in the wings in like that worst case scenario. So I think fans sometimes jump to conclusions about like, oh, this guy's out of the rotation. Oh, Grant Williams doesn't come to an extension. Like he's a trade, candidate. That's not necessarily the case here.
Right. Yeah. And so to wrap up here, I guess, do you see any like out of contenders and I guess either conference right now, like who do you see as potentially being a team that is aggressive, that has like more holes to fill or at least will be looking to, add, obviously, I don't think we're going to see any super sexy names on the move like you talked about, but like add maybe a more proven bench guy or something like that to kind of, even, increase their odds.
Well, the Nets and Bucks, I think, certainly will look for upgrades, especially as Kevin Durant misses some time here. And Chris Middleton remains hampered with injury.
Yeah, what are you hearing on him, by the way? That's like, are they just going to rest him as long as they can? Get him right?
Yeah, it's been unfortunate. There's been setbacks. I don't want to rush him, but like clearly there seems to be some mounting frustrations with Giannis and the fact that, him and Drew are just out there together every night playing both sides. I mean, they're looking at moving Grayson Allen, that's for sure. The Nets, they've got a pick from the Sixers that they have available to trade. And Nick Claxton has been pretty sufficient, but people are looking to see what they'll look to do to maybe add some reinforcements in the front court. Philly's going to be active for sure. Cleveland's looking for small forward improvements. And I think that kind of rounds out, I guess. To me, that top five in the East is really where the conference will be decided. You can look at New York, Miami. All those teams are good teams, and they have good players, and they can beat you on any given night. But I think right now, the majority of people I speak to in the league looks at the East as kind of like a 5-team race, and definitely also a race to try to get out of that 4-5 matchup, because that's going to be a bloodbath. Whichever two teams end up squaring off, which right now Boston is they had a 4-game advantage on Philly and Cleveland, so that's a good cushion to have. But anything can happen in this league. We saw the Celtics go through a pretty weird stretch, around the new year, or late December, whatever exactly that was. So you're going to want as much of a cushion as you can, and that 4-5 matchup is certainly one that no one wants to be in. No, just knowing that the second round is going to be a bloodbath too.
Yeah, it's gonna be a gauntlet for whoever gets stuck there, and like you can see with the way Joe Mazzulla is playing, like Tatum and Brown, some of these guys, like they know that they don't want to get stuck in that and want to give themselves a little bit of breathing room as we go to the second half of the season here. But all right, well, that'll do it for us here. I want to thank again Jake for joining the show. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Jake L. Fischer. Make sure you check out all his stuff on Yahoo, and you have your own pod as well, Jake, a couple times a week on Get Calling, right?
I do, and my book's still out there. Still Celtics.
Yeah, that's right.
Stuff.
A lot of good Celtics nuggets in that.
A lot of good
Still,
Celtics nuggets in that.
Always see it at the local bookstore here in Boston.
And I get some royalties every cent at a time. So
make it happen.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Always good to see you. And shout out to everybody at the TD Garden who I appreciate all the many years of my college days and beyond hanging out in the bowels of the house that Red Auerbach built.
We miss you up here, bud.
Yeah, man. See you.
All right. Take care.